Let's start this one off with some harsh realities. Bells of Steel leg press hack squat machine is nothing new. That's not to say it's not different from others on the market, but there's a few of these out there and they all tend to suffer from the same issues. So the question is, did Bells do it better? Well, leg press and hack squat machines are very popular, especially in commercial gyms, but in a home gym, most of us don't have a ton of room, so a combination unit like this can save you a lot of space and money. The problem is, anytime you combine the functionality of things, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. And let's be honest, if Bells isn't the innovator, they just had to refine what others were already doing. And this does some things very well, but there's a few areas where I'm really left scratching my head, which I'll point out as we make some comparisons. So watch to the end to see just how brutally honest I can be as I give my final thoughts and recommendations. The first thing you probably notice with this is how small I make it look. And that's just because I'm a massive human being. But rest assured, we tested this on normal sized people like Winnie, who's 5'6", my buddy Sarth, who's tiny compared to me at 6'2", 290 pounds, and of course myself at 6 foot, and others, because the biggest question we kept getting was about the range of motion, since that's something that plagues a lot of models like ForceUSA's when using it for hack squats. And I think that's where Bells excels. Nobody we tried it on had any issues getting full depth on any exercise, and their machine, while still large, actually has a smaller footprint than ones like ForceUSA and Titan because the weight horns to load it are mounted underneath instead of up top on the sled where it really sticks out. Where we did have some problems is with these foot plates. Let me show you how this thing works real quick because my complaints will make more sense. Right now I've got it set up for leg press, but swapping it to hack squat is actually pretty simple. You've got this plate right here that folds down. There's just a simple pop pin that you pull and then that folds into position. And then you remove the back pad, which slots into these little slots. It just kind of slides into position. And then your final adjustment is going to be the angle you want this foot plate at, and you've got 4 positions. You just remove the pin, which really should be a pop pin like the one up above. This is kind of a cheap and silly cost-saving measure by Bells and pretty much everybody else because they're all using the same thing. And then you pop it in once you picked your angle, and you're pretty much good to go, and reverse that process, of course, if you want to put it back into a leg press. Now, I like this as a hack squat, and that's typically where these machines don't perform well because the range of motion tends to suck. Here I think my only complaints would be nitpicks. The padding is okay. The bearings work. They're fairly smooth, if not a little loud. Nothing I really notice over my own crying during leg day. But I prefer the rollers of ForceUSA's. They're silent and incredibly smooth. And if you hadn't noticed, the handrails are kind of awkward to reach in this position. Actually, I'd say that's not really a nitpick, that's a bad design, but I've got over a foot of height left on the guide rod, so height's not gonna be an issue. And it even works okay for reverse hack squats. Not that I'm in the position for that, nor could the camera fit all this cake on it, so maybe we'll let Winnie demonstrate that one. So what's the issues with the plates? I'll do a couple demos because it'll better show off some of the problems I'm having. With hack squats, the plate size is actually pretty good. I've got plenty of space to mess with my foot positioning to find what works for me. It's stable, grippy, and essentially the same size as ForceUSA's. And as I mentioned, you can get a full range of motion on this thing. Oh, I kind of forgot that I loaded hundreds on here. Well, as you can tell, I'm below 90 degrees. Remember, I can still adjust this angle, and I'm going to just awkwardly get out of this rather than prove to everybody how manly I am on camera. Now that I've said a few nice things, this is probably a good time to mention this was sent for free for the review, and if you find our content useful, then please use our affiliate links if you decide to purchase one of the machines we talk about today, because I'm gonna need that affiliate commission if Bells keeps watching after this point, because this is where it starts to fall apart a bit. The real issues come in when using this as a leg press. I think this is where Bells needs to do some tweaking. It's not bad, but there's a few simple fixes that would make it great. The first thing you'll notice on every one of these combo machines is the leg press foot plate is just too small. Now this one's not comically small like on RitFit's version, and at 23.5 inches wide, it's actually the same width as ForceUSA's, though it is 3.5 inches shorter. But if I hop on here, you'll see right now I'm about at shoulder width, and I can get a good range of motion before my hips start lifting off the machine, but my feet are really close to the edge of the plate, and there is no space left up top. And while I know this is hard to believe, but there are people that are actually bigger than me out there, and everyone's built differently, so who's to say what's going to be comfortable for you? Also, there's no reason outside of cost that they can't increase both the width and the height of this plate. It won't interfere with the handrails or the footprint, and the plate can still be folded down without affecting the hack squat. So it's passable and actually a lot better than a lot of other options, but you can see I've got 200 pounds loaded on here, and there's some flex in the foot plate, which doesn't really instill a lot of confidence in you when you're loading this thing up. Now it does have a 1,000 pound weight capacity, and I've loaded it with 6 plates on here for reps, and it worked fine, but I wouldn't push it anywhere near its max, and that has nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't push it anywhere near its max. They need to reinforce this foot plate like ForceUSA has done with theirs. They should also take a page from Force and make an adjustable safety, because whereas this excels as a hack squat because you can get really low, here, if you miss this last safety, well, this isn't really a position I'm used to or enjoy being in. Now, are all of these things deal breakers? I don't know, maybe not, but there's a few more things that I feel could be easily fixed. Before we get to my final thoughts and recommendations, I should quickly talk about assembly and packaging, because it is a bit of a process to put this thing together. I had some help, and it took us about 90 minutes, so it's not overwhelming, but it is a bit involved. I'd say the directions are kind of classic bells. The first few steps don't look too bad, and then you get to the point where I feel like they just didn't want to use another piece of paper. And bells, when I constantly harp on you for not labeling the hardware, this isn't what I meant. The entire assembly experience isn't terrible. It is, though, a good summary of how I feel about this machine, which brings us to the build quality, and I'd qualify it as it definitely could be better. Here's what I mean. The handrails work fine, but I've only tightened 3 of the 4 bolts on each side, because with all of them tight, there's so much friction, they're actually difficult to move. There's no handles on this thing besides the ones on the safeties. So you've really got nothing great to hold on to during leg press, because if I hold on to this and pull on it, the rail will rub against my top bearing block, giving me kind of a startling jolt. The weight storage pins are really just poorly attached, and I had to straighten out this part of the plate because it was welded on crooked. So adjusting this was originally pretty tough, but the worst thing they did was this tiny little seat here, because for those of you that are booty enabled, like my wife and I, it's just too small. And I'm joking about that being the worst thing. I've already given a dozen other worse examples. Bells of Steel's leg press hack squat costs $1,900, which is oddly similar to what Titan's version costs. Granted, they both run a lot of sales, and I take Bells over Titan because 1, the range of motion is much better, and 2, you don't have to deal with Titan's phallic pad increasing the footprint, never mind the weight horns jutting out. Bells also has a smaller footprint than ForceUSA's, and they cost about the same since ForceUSA runs a fake sale 365 days a year. This is not the type of machine I'm going low budget on. You put a lot of weight on these things, and there's no good place to cut costs. So those commercial grade 2,500 pound weight limit ones on Amazon's aren't worth the risk, because remember kids, nobody wins when you're dead. So which one would I get? Honestly, it's not a hard choice. ForceUSA has a better build quality. The machine overall functions better, even if the range of motion isn't quite as good, but they've got the calf raise block, or you can just use the foot plate for calf raises, Whereas with bells, there's no good way to do it because this sled frame is in the way. And while Force isn't perfect and they're all imported, even if Force has the most cryptic way of ever saying it, to me, it's not really close. So if the prices are close, I'd go with ForceUSA or wait for version 2 of this one. Thanks to our Patreons who help us to be this honest without worrying about affiliates, and thanks for watching.